But I'm sorry, there is no handbook to this. So I can't tell you do A, B, and C, and nobody else can. You are going to have to figure this out as you go along. And when she said that to me, that's when I realized I will do the exact opposite of what my father did. Mm. So it made sense to a certain degree, but it was also frustrating and scary because I do not know what to do. I have not done this before, and I have never seen anybody do this. So the fear factor was probably the greatest part of the initial equation. And as he grew and moved on, the next thing that really hit me was I do not want my son to live his life through me, and I don't want to vicariously live my life through him. That's why his name is Matthew and not Mark. I need Matthew King to be Matthew King. I don't need him to be Mark King Jr. So my wife gave me the privilege to name our first son. His name is Matthew David. And both of those come from the Bible, as you well know. Mm-hmm. Because I want my son to be better than me. And I think I'm pretty good, let's be clear. But I want my son to be better than me because he needs to understand that his children need to be better than him. And that's how generationally we move forward, not only as a family, but as a people and as a community. And funny story, I'm 6'4", I love basketball.
Right.
When he was young, we took him to Pepper Mill. We're going to go out here. You're going to get basketball training and you'll be great. We did that for about a month every Saturday for about an hour and a half. And then after a while, he said, I really don't like basketball. And I'm losing my mind. I'm like, son, what do you mean you don't like basketball? He says, I actually prefer soccer. So as a result of me wanting to be his own man, we started taking soccer classes, and he started playing soccer probably 5 or 6 years old, and he still plays now. He's 14 because that's what he wanted to do. And I think it was important for me to let go of what I wanted him to do and let him do what he wants to do because it's his life. I can't live it. I can't lead it. I can only model for you what I would do as a man and hope that you're paying attention.
No, you said a lot in sharing that. I remember when my daughter was born, she's the oldest. The day she was born, I was already worried about having to deal with the fact she would want to date. And so, I went through processing that information. Not too long after her being born, I actually had a conversation with myself, expressing my understanding why my father left. Simply meaning, in you talking about being scared, I accepted the fact that my father probably felt like he couldn't handle the responsibility associated with, husband and fatherhood, whatever the issue was. And so, not that I agree with it, approve of it, like it, I accept it, I understand it. And what that did for me, I can only speak for myself, it created closure. Who I am as a father, who I become as a father will be solely based on what I do. And I've had the privilege of working with parents for a number of years through the National Family Resiliency Center. And I know that what I do as a father, more than anything, will determine my children's relationship with me and nothing else. And so what am I doing to ensure that that relationship remains intact? And I've had the privilege of having interactions with Shauna that led to those experiences with the National Family Resiliency Center. But I just want to add this before we continue. I had I remember leaving the middle school where we both worked together. You eventually became a principal, as you mentioned. And in the time you became an instructional leader, I would always hear nothing but great things about who you were as far as how you led and how it made teachers feel in the way that you were leading. And so I just want to commend you because observing you from afar, it has been truly a blessing just to watch how you have modeled and emulated manhood and fatherhood in the community as one watching you. Shauna, we want to give you the opportunity not only to ask a question, but since this is in recognition of Mark as a father, in asking your question, can you also just share what him being a father to your children means to you?
So one of the things I wanted to do, it's just been amazing just to sit back and, as a woman, I always joke people that women have like 10,000 words a day and men have like about 2,000 words. So I have been biting my lip this whole time, like, nope, I'm just going to let the men talk. I'm just going to let the men talk because that's what needs to happen. And I have just learned so much, but I'm actually really curious because, we definitely celebrate Mark. I don't know if we've even said that Mark is my husband, he's my boo and my bae. And so I've just been sitting around and I truly agree with all that he has said. He has, if you were to just look on paper maybe and say someone who come from this situation didn't have this, many times people label children based on what they've experienced and limit their opportunities. But my husband is just an amazing example of, with mentorship. My mother-in-law is amazing. Raising and having those mentors around that boys can grow up to be great men, even if the father is not in the home. But I'm really curious from you guys, just in a minute that we have left, as a woman, I mean, let's say there's a woman raising that child, whether it's a boy or a girl on their own, and there's a father not in the house, for whatever reason, whether it's divorce or relationship just didn't work out or whatever. What advice would you have for us as women? Because, sometimes, that can be a contentious relationship between, it may be a contentious relationship between the mother and maybe the father of the child. What advice could you give women when it comes to understanding the important role that men do play in the lives of our children? Either one of you, I'd love to hear.
Mark, I'll let you respond to that.
I think what's most important and what I learned growing up was don't blame the children for the sins of the father. While my father has never been there, I've never really heard my mother speak ill of my father until I was old and she told me exactly what happened and why they were divorced. Mm-hmm. But often in the education field and even in communities, I hear mothers say, "You just like your father." Yeah. And that puts an image in the mind of a child that, well, he just must be terrible, because they never say that when the child does something good.
You're right.
It never comes out, well, you just like your father. He was the best trumpet player I ever heard. It always comes out in a negative.
You're right.
And I mean, I would tell mothers, it's not the child's fault that didn't work out for whatever reason. Right. It's not the child's fault. I think that's number one. And number two, I think it's important for mothers to understand that it's not impossible. It is very hard. Let's be clear. And my mother will tell you how difficult it is. It is very hard, but it's not impossible. Do not give up. Stay involved. Be vocal. Don't become overbearing, because what happens is, especially as an African-American male, there comes a time when we reach our mother's height. And in our mind, when we reach our mother's height, that kind of equates to manhood. So there is going to come a time when you are going to have to address him as a child. Do not call your son little man, my man in the house, because you create a whole different dynamic. Everybody has a name. Call the child by their name. So when you call little man from 4 to 14, at 14, he actually believes, because you have been telling him that for 10 years, that he is a man. And what he needs to understand is, no, you are a child. Stay in a child's place. So, but I think the most important part is, don't blame the sins of the father on the child. I think that is most important, because I've heard that. I've been doing this since 1995. I've heard that, if not twice, 3, 4 times every year, 10 times a year.
Wow.
What I would be...
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, thank you.
What I would be interested in adding to that, thank you, Mark, for sharing that. Shauna, thank you for asking the question. I talk about divorce because it is a reality in my life. And my beauty out of that was still maintaining a healthy relationship with my children, but also my children's mother and I grew in learning how to have a healthy relationship as well, despite the divorce. As a mother, she was very involved in their upbringing and involving my son in mentoring, but then also speaking from the male child perspective, she would keep me informed when the challenges began. But then her and I also planned ahead of time and talked about how we were going to handle dating way before they became teens. And so we were on the same page, which she acknowledged and appreciated, that made it a lot easier for her to handle 2 teenagers in the home, because they're only a year in age difference. So they were both teenagers at the same time. So she's dealing with all of this, wanting to date, wanting to get out there and do the things that teens want to do. And we were going out together to eat, to talk with the kids. We just recently went out together to eat and have Bible study. So when and wherever possible, involving the father in the lives of the children, not withholding them intentionally from the father. Studies indicate that when the fathers, like Mark, are involved and active in their child's life, they do better academically, they articulate better, they have greater self-esteem. This is in no way dismissal of the mother's impact on her role as the mother, but studies indicate that the father's involvement is a great contribution to the development of the child, as it relates to academics, as it relates to social emotional development. So if mothers do have fathers who want to be involved and active, let them be. Let's communicate and figure out ways to do that. And for fathers, I would say, even if you're in a situation where you don't have the daily access, you can still have an impact. I went from seeing my children every day to maybe once a month by the time they were in high school, and not because they were being withheld from me. It was just the reality of their schedule. And they were on the cheerleading team and wanting to play basketball and things of that nature. So,
they get real.
Say that again, Shauna.